Hey guys, it's Ben here from SBS Boards, and today I want to talk to you about our 7 top tips for going to the Bristol Wave Garden. So a couple of weeks back we went to the Wave in Bristol and we had an incredible time there. It was super fun. Can't believe they actually made a wave like that, and it's actually pretty close to where we live, only a 2-hour drive for us. And it was so fun for us. We wanted to give you guys as many tips and hints as you can to maximise your time there and to maximise your money. So here's our 7 top tips for surfing the Wave Bristol. Number 1, get there early. If you're going to be spending all that money surfing on a wave, which is definitely worth it, I'd recommend getting there nice and early. Say your session starts at 10, I would say as a bare minimum, get there at least an hour early. Any later than that and you're really going to be rushing and trying to get everything together to get in the water. You don't want to be turning up late and getting into the water late. They won't allow you to get into the water late if you miss your session. So you definitely want to be well prepared and ready to go when they call your name. When you arrive to the Wave Bristol in the car park, there is a relatively long walk to the actual wave itself. There's an initial check-in point and then there's a long walk to the actual centre where the actual wave is. So you could say 15 to 10 minute walk. If you've got a skateboard, that'd be ideal. I highly recommend taking one. Our team rider Dan took one, and it's going to make your transport to and from there a lot easier. Definitely take everything from the car with you. You don't want to leave anything in the car because it's a long walk back to and from. Getting to the wave early will also give you a lot of time to scope out the entire area. There's a lot going on. When we went, there's a lot of construction still going on, but there's going to be a lot there to see in the future. Especially it gives you time to look around the shops, to get signed in, which is the most important thing. Get signed in, get your jersey, get your wetsuit on, get changed. Any alterations, waxing up boards, sticking in fins, all those things take a lot of time, and you don't want to be sticking those fins in just before you go in the water. You want to be well prepared, warmed up and ready to go. 15 minutes before your session, they call a meeting and just explain the rules of the wave pool. Making sure you understand that and getting there early is going to really help you maximise your time in the water. You also don't want to be rushing when you get there. There's nothing worse than having to run in the water without a proper warm-up, or worse, if it's cold, missing out your gloves or hood or booties. You can also test different fins there, so if you're looking to try what different fins feel like, that's a great opportunity to try. But again, you want to get there early to make sure you can make those alterations and swaps to your board. Tip number 2, bring a higher volume board. For most of us, we surf in the sea all year round, and your surfboard in the sea has a slightly different buoyancy than it does in freshwater. Most of the surfers that we talked to that used their normal surfboard that they used to surf in the sea found they were a little underpowered. They didn't have as much speed paddling into waves, and they found it more difficult paddling into waves. So I'd recommend having a board with a little bit more volume, maybe 2 to 3 litres more than your traditional surfboard for surfing the sea. Also, it helps with paddling into the waves easier, keeping that speed throughout the wave, and then paddling back up to the lineup. Having a higher volume board is also going to be an advantage for the advanced surfers when it comes time to do your cutbacks. After your initial drop in, the wave starts to flatten out, so that's the perfect time to cut back. We saw a lot of people struggle with the smaller boards unless they were a good surfer. So having a board with a little bit more volume will just make cutting back to the peak a little bit easier. Having those few extra litres in the board will also give you a little bit more speed when it's time to pump down the line for the small barrel section, or again, if you're going to boost in air or do a big top turn. It's going to allow you to keep that speed in your turns. Tip number 3, take off right by the wall. There's a small area on both sides called the takeoff point. 2 red lines indicate the area where you should sit to take off. This is where the wave is going to start breaking, and it's the best opportunity to catch the wave early. My advice to you would be on your first attempt just to sit behind that first line and then hopefully be able to catch it a little bit earlier. If you don't catch it, move forward towards that second line and you're definitely going to catch it as it starts to crumble and you get pushed down the face. Taking off right by the wall is going to give you a lot of power and a big push down to the face of the wave. Especially as you go into that first bottom turn, whether you're on the right or left, it's going to give you a big push out into the flatter section, and it's going to allow you to keep your speed in your cutback when you cut back to the face of the wave. Number 4, come for a few hours. For us, it was such a great experience going to the wave, and we had so much fun exploring and just watching that wave over and over again. It's almost surreal the amount of times we watched the waves and couldn't believe what we were seeing. If you're going to be there and you're going to surf a session, you don't just want to go for an hour and then leave. You want to enjoy the entire experience. and I'd 100% recommend having 1 or 2 hours before and then 1 or 2 hours after, really enjoying the experience. Again, there's food there you can eat, there's shops, there's fins, you can just be watching the sessions, and there's got to be other stuff there in the future. So I'd probably recommend you go there for a few hours and really enjoy the whole experience. If you can, what I would recommend is going for 2 surfs. Obviously it's going to cost you a little bit more cash, but it's definitely worth it. 1 surf and then have a little bit of a break, enjoy maybe some hot chocolate, maybe a warm coffee, something like that, and then get a second one in. It's definitely worth it, because once you start to figure out the wave, before you know it, it's the end of the session. So it's always good to get a second surf in if you've got the fitness and the time and also the cash. Number 5, make sure you're a competent surfer. We saw a lot of surfers there in the advanced area that were even struggling with their pop-up and weren't making the waves. There were a lot of bails, they weren't catching many waves at all. I'd highly recommend that if you are going to go to the advanced section, you can definitely catch waves relatively easy and make sure that your pop-up is really on point. You should be able to surf in either direction, be able to do some kind of a cutback, and definitely be able to master turns. You don't want to go all the way to Bristol, spend your money, and then not actually be able to surf because you're not at that level yet. If you can't surf the advanced level, I'd highly recommend going towards the intermediate level, where the waves are going to be a lot smaller and they are still a small green unbroken wave. That way you're not going to spend most of your time underneath the water. Also, being a competent surfer means you get to enjoy that wave a lot more. It's only 15 seconds, so it does pass by quite quick. So you want to maximise your time in the wave, and if you're there for the first time, you're only going to get maybe 10 waves, 15 waves if you're lucky. So you really want to maximise your time on every wave. So I would 100% make sure that you are a competent surfer and that you can do a good amount of manoeuvres on waves. Number 6, bring all the wetsuit gear. Like us, if you're going in the middle of winter, you definitely want to take all of your wetsuit gear. That means hood, gloves, boots, and they want to be thick. It was pretty cold there. We went on the coldest day of the year so far, and I would highly recommend taking those boots and gloves. They were definitely needed. Cold water inland is slightly different temperature to the normal sea temperature. It wasn't as warm as the sea, and we found that it was a lot colder, and especially when the air was still in a slight valley, it was quite cold. Freshwater tends to be a little bit colder, and like a lot of people thought when they got there, they thought it might be heated. It's definitely not heated, so make sure that you do bring those hoods and gloves. It's going to keep you warm all session, and there's nothing worse than having to come out of your session, miss a few waves just to put on a hood and gloves. So if you do come anywhere from November onwards, I'd highly recommend taking some boots, gloves and a hood. Number 7 is bring some cash. If you're coming to the Wave Bristol for the day, you're going to need some cash, and there's lots to do there, there's lots to check out. There's some incredible surfboards, some lovely clothing, shops, there's food to eat, they've got food trucks, and there's obviously a cafe. You may even want to book in another surf session. So depending how much fun you had, you may want to go and then book another surf session for the afternoon or something like that. So having a little extra cash means that you're not hindered in what you want to do. So guys, hopefully those 7 tips help you when you go to the Wave Bristol. If you have any other tips or advice for other people, let us know in the comments below. And if you do get to surf the Wave Bristol, hopefully you get to have a lot of fun and really enjoy your day. Thanks for watching, guys.